Hi, my name is Miriam Bogler, and I'm the founder and CEO of Project Pals. This is the last training in a series of 3 trainings in which we are going to cover the advanced concepts such as how to use components, how to use events, how to copy tabs from one project to the other, and also a more detailed conversation about analytics. So let me, without further ado, let me just share the screen with you guys. And let me go into a finished project. And in this project, this is probably the best place to show you how to use components and how to use events. So I already mentioned in our basic training that Project Pals is a great believer in computational thinking. And computational thinking is the process by which engineers solve problems. When they have a big problem, they break it down to smaller pieces, they solve each of them separately, and then they put them back together with some logical glue once they solved it. So one way by which we fulfill that is by breaking down a problem into phases. Here in these tabs, each tab is a phase in the project, but then we also have two computational thinking tools. The first one is the tool 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the component tool. This is how you create a component and this is a component here. These are all components. So the component tool is, if you think about a project, and you then think about what are the main parts that I absolutely have to understand in order to solve this problem. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to come up with all the parts of all that big problem. You know, sometimes you just focus on one section at a time. So in this case, we have here a project in which students are designing a transport system, such as the one that Amazon has in its fulfillment centers. So Amazon has the Kiva robot, and the Kiva robot transports, merchandise from place to place in their fulfillment centers. And these students have to design something similar, not before. They understand the physics of simple machines, and then how simple machines work, and also understanding how the fulfillment centers in Amazon work, and then finally how they actually build it with any robotic tool such as Lego Mindstorms or any other robotic tool. So in this phase of the project, and this is the physics phase, they need to show us the parts or the components that are the physics of simple machines. So those are force, motion, and energy. And then so what they did is they created a component for each of them. And then they went and did some research, and they came up with the characteristics of each. So, and they described each characteristic in very short sentences, as you see them here. And then why would they do that, and why use a component tool to do this? So by describing the characteristics in short sentences, students actually learn to, are able to overcome the limitations, I should say, of working memory, because you just cannot remember too much at once. So short sentences make it easier to remember. It also makes it easier to comprehend, because, as I said before, by using these short sentences, it's easier to comprehend the material. And finally, it's also easier to collaborate, because other team members can go through these short sentences, read them, and weigh in, and also add to it their own, whatever they have to add to it. And so that's the big power. But if you think about it in other terms, it is known, for example, that flashcards, using flashcards in order to learn to attest, is one of the most, I would say, beneficial methods of learning to attest. And the reason is that students are actually forced to write down the entire material that they are training for in short sentences on those flashcards. So if you think about it that way, you are actually doing the same thing here. The students are actually forced to kind of go through the material, and instead of writing a whole essay about force, they just write it down in very short sentences that then help them very much to remember, to comprehend, and to collaborate on it much easier. Now, how do you create a component? You go to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th tool here, click on it, type the name of the component here, put an image here. You can just click on it, and whether from a URL or upload from a computer or project media. And once you do that, and let me just show you here how, you type the name, you put the image here, and then go next. And here, each of these items is one of those branches that you've seen before. And you just put one characteristic at a time. So we have quite a few of them here listed already. And again, each of them, it's a good idea to put an image that reflects what you're saying in the text box. And you can even add more supporting material. So if you have something else to say that supports whatever you're saying, you can still add them here. So that's also a possibility. If you need to remove some of these items, you always have on each item has its own trash can. So you can remove it, you can delete it. And then if you need to add another item to here, all you have to do is click on add item here. And here it adds another item ready for you to actually, add something new. So this is the component tool. Now, the second computational thinking tool that we are using, and let me just move on to the fulfillment center here, the tour of Amazon fulfillment system. And the second computational thinking tool is the events tool. And the events tool, so if components are the main parts of a problem, then the events tool are the processes. So in an event tool, you can describe processes. And so in this case, you have characteristics of each component. Here in events tool, you have steps. So each of these are steps. And here the kids are describing how the fulfillment center in Amazon is working. And you can add as many steps as you need. The events tool is a very diverse tool. And because it doesn't necessarily have to only serve just a process, it can also serve a timeline. So let's say that you are doing a social studies project, you can actually mark it with a date and create a timeline. Now, there are 3 ways to display information in an events tool. One of them is the default, which is this, a step, here step by step. You can show step-by-step process by going, and you can use the arrows to go through the steps. And another way to show everything is by clicking here and going to the gallery mode. In gallery mode, you can show the image big and the text, the description small on the bottom. And then you can show every step with its own image, what's going on. And then finally, if this is, as I said before, a social studies project or history or anything else that location has meaning, you can go to the map view. In the map view, you actually things are mapped on a Google map. And then when you click on the numbers here in the Google map, you can see each step with its own image and its own description. So this is a very, very powerful tool. Now, how do you create and how do you edit this tool? So to create an event, you go to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You are going to the 6th tool here and click on it. And then you type in here the name of the event. And in this case, it was Amazon's fulfillment system. So how does it work? And then you click here to add an image. Again, you can add it from the computer or from a URL. And then just to show you what's happening next, I'm going to edit this one. And here is the name, here is the image. Now let's go next. And here, each of this is a step, as I said before. You will describe one step at a time, and you will add an image that relates to it. Now, another thing that you can add here, as I said before, you can add a date. So you click here, it says time, and here already has March 14, so you can type. And the reason you don't have a drop-down calendar is because we wanted to allow to add things like 500 AD or 800 BC or something like that. So that's why you don't see a calendar showing up here. So you have to actually type the date. And we also allow to add a coordinate. So in this case, we have quite a few already there mapped. But let's say I'm going to add a new location here. I'm going to click here and I'm going to type in here a new location. And this is going to be, let's say, Las Vegas, Nevada. And so I'm going to press save. And then I'm going to, again, so there is a coordinate. A coordinate was added here. And I can press save now. And it will save it. And now when I go to display this on a Google map, of course, it's going to show all these locations and including the location in Nevada that was just added. And you can just go through them, and show every single location here, as I showed you before. So that's how you use the events tool. Another good project for it would be, and let me just add that one here. And you'll be able to see that too. So this is a dynamic timeline, I should say. And so what you see here is Marco Polo's travels. So each step is a milestone in Marco Polo's travels. And here you describe the date, exactly what he did in that date. And you can go through, and it's really long, you can go through every single step here. And as I said before, you can display it in a gallery mode. Then you see the image is big and the description underneath it, exactly what was going on. And the other way to show it is also show it on the map, on a Google map. And here there's quite a few of those. As I said before, to see every single one of them, you need to increase the size of the map so you can get to every single one of them and show and display them all. But this is giving you a good idea of what happened in each step of the way in Marco Polo's travels. Okay, so now what I would like to do is I would like to also relate to a few more things that you can do when you are a little bit more advanced. So one of them would be to learn how to repurpose information from the content library. So let me just take you to a project like that, and I'm going to just change the project here. Let me just go to the catalog and to the completed project, and here I'm going to choose. Oops, not this one. The comparison of shapes. And in this project is about creating a component for each shape. So this can kind of give you also an additional idea about how to use components. So in this case, of course, the components in this project are all the shapes. So each shape has a component, and these are the characteristics of that shape. So the square has 4 sides, the square has 4 equal sides, and so on. The square has 4 right angles. So everything, characteristic that you can find about each of these shapes. Now, every information that you create, anything that you create, is stored in the content library, which is the first tool on the top. So here you will see all the recent additions to this project, and it will also tell you what type of addition this was. These are all text boxes. But then once it flows over this, this size here, it will start categorizing them by type. And so in this case, we are talking about components. We'll go to the components. There are 12 of them. For each component, there is, for each component or each shape, I would say there is a component. And then let's say that I want to see square. I'm going to open it here. And actually, there's another square here that I need to open. Here it is. And then here you see all the characteristics that have been recorded there. And actually, what's interesting about that you can actually drop these characteristics on the workspace. You can click on the three dots and copy to workspace as text box. So let me show you how that was being used here in this project. A new tab was created that's called Compare and Contrast. And here I created a table with the y-axis says sides, angles, interior and exterior angles, perimeter and area. And the x-axis here, the opposite. The y-axis here is are all the different shapes, and the x-axis are the sides, angles, interior, perimeter, and area. And what you see here is that the students went into the content library, they went to components, and as I said before, they opened, for example, one of these shapes, and then one of the x-axis says sides, so we want to take one of the entries here that says the square has 4 sides, and open and actually click on it and go to copy to workspace as text box. And so here it is. Now we have to look for square here in the list. So we're going to drop it to the bottom where square shows up. And then just, resize the text box. And since it has a color, we can even change the color here by going to format and changing the color to one of these. Actually to this, no. Yeah, maybe that, or maybe that. Yeah, that's the one. And here it is. The square has 4 sides. And so we can put it here as an entry in this table. So this is how you can actually reuse information, and you don't have to retype everything now and use text boxes to fill this table out. You can actually reuse existing information in different ways. So in other words, this is called like looking at different perspective of the same information. So that's about the content library. Okay, moving on from here, I also want to discuss with you how you can copy tabs from one project to the other. Of course, you always have the single tab templates where you can actually combine the single tabs in different ways. And maybe this is a good place to also show you how I am creating a project with the wizard. So when you click on the plus button here, you can then type in here my new project, and then provide here a short description. I'm not going to describe, I'm sure you know what to write here. And then add an image to, to the project. I'm not going to add right now, you know how to add images in Project Pulse. And then you can now use our one tabs here. So in the first phase, they are, the application is offering a few one tabs that can serve as the beginners or as the start of a project. And so, for example, let's say that you want to start the project with a brainstorm template. You will click on it, and it also, by the way, you can hover over it, and it gives you kind of, what to expect to see there. And so let's say I'm choosing the brainstorm template, and I'm going to move on, and I'm going to add another phase. And after the brainstorm, I'm going to add maybe an ideate template and move on. And then if any of these suggestion is not a good suggestion yet, then I can go to more templates and find more of those. And let's say that now I want to add also a problem based on observations And I'm going to just press save. And now I can go and just finish. And so what it does is just combines all those one-tab templates and created for me a custom project that I can then use. And even if, let's say, you would like to add more from those one tabs and forgot to, you can still do it by clicking on the plus button and go to new tab from template. And let's say that you forgot to add an observation template. And now you can click on the observation template here and press create. And here it is, observation is selected, it is added, and you can even move it to the right place, before problems based on observation. And then moving here. So that's one way by which you customize your project to fit your needs. But let's say that nothing of these one tabs will serve. And you just found in one of these projects. So let's say I will take this project as an example. What does it mean to be human? And here we have one of the tabs is called the museum. Let's say that your students are visiting a museum, and or actually visiting several museums, and you want them to kind of describe what they see, and you created this table for them, and actually in this template, this table fits exactly what you want them to focus on, like describe the exhibit, what do you notice, what do you see, what stands out, how it makes you feel, all these things about that exhibit in the museum. And these are all links to different museums, so they can actually compare and contrast those exhibits and come up exactly with, and all this information actually as it reflects the artifacts, the design, the layout, and all other things, as well as having a whole series of guiding questions that can guide them to the whole thing. And so let's say that you decide, what, you want to use this in your project. So what you can do is you can just right-click on this and go where it says copy tab. And when you copy tab, it gives you a list of all your projects. And this is the latest project that I created. So you can even create a project without anything in it, just this tab, okay? And then just click on my new project and it copies it there. And let's see what happened. Let's go there and let's see what happened. So I'm going to my new project here. And guess what? The museum was added as your last tab. So again, this is just a random mix of things. So of course, this is not a real consistent project. Just wanted to show you the different ways by which you can combine either the one tabs or even take a specific tab from a project, and copy it to a new project that you just created. So your options are actually limitless. You can combine as many things in your project, as many tabs as you want from all the different projects that exist in the catalog. All right, so now these are basically all the advanced concepts. I'm not sure if I mentioned that you actually, once the students finish the project, and let me go to another project here that is actually a finished project. Let me go this time to a social studies class and go to a project about homelessness. And let me show you how students, after they finish the project, how they can present it to the entire class. And so on the bottom left, there are quite a few tools. One of them is the presentation tools. You can click on the presentation tool and it turns it into a PowerPoint kind of thing. And you can use the arrows to move from one tab to the other. So that's also, of course, available, and students can explain what they did and so on. All right, so what I would like to do at this point is to show you, is kind of delve a little bit deeper into analytics. So let me go again to one of these finished projects. Actually, I could have stayed on this project in social studies. Let's go there again. And in here, you see that there's something, there's a pie chart, and this is the only chart, the analytics, I should say, that students can see. And this, as I said before, is a really, really big motivator for students, because they don't like to be this. They don't like to be the smallest piece of the pie, although sometimes they end up being, but generally speaking, it motivates them to try harder. And then here where it says in the right panel, you have the analytics, the analytics menu option, and it shows the teacher. This is actually available only for teachers. And here it shows you, it says action, how many actions students performed in a specific date. And you see that each student has their own color. So you know exactly that, Benjamin performed this much on this date, and that Daniel performed so much, and Jonathan so much. And then moving on from here, you can go to how many sessions they did in and out, how many collaborations they performed. And collaboration means that they have worked on the same project asset together. Like I mentioned before, when they're working on the components, just by the fact that they are able to add individual characteristics, the other team members can go through it and decide, oh, you forgot to cover something, maybe I should add to it. So that's considered working on the same project asset together. And all they can comment on each other's work. And then time spent in the system, how much time they spend in the system, and even averages here, as well as seeing the same information in a table format and the same pie chart that students can see, the teacher can see as well. And on the left here, the teacher can also see what types of contributions were made. So whether students were working on relationships, and on how many worked on text boxes and media, how many added analysis style, components, and so on. So all these things are going to be recorded here for the teacher to see what types of contributions were made. In addition to the fact that you can also use here the date ranges, you can change date ranges and focus on specific things. So there's quite a lot of flexibility in that sense. Now let me move on, and let me just show you how an administrator can go and get some information if, say, this is a district that's working, and the administrator wants to see which schools are more active or something like that. And so for that purpose, I'm going to just log out and log into a different account and show you. So this, I'm going to get back to this. This is also another type of the admin and teacher dashboard. But before that, I just wanted to focus on the statistics here, on the statistics. So this is an institution statistics. So right now you see, you just see one thing here, but then if you go here, it says all data. This is the entire district kind of information. But if you go into here, then you can actually go to account. Account means school. Or schools, sorry. And here it lists for you all the schools that are under this district. So I'm going to click here on Borchers and on Kennedy and on the others. And each time I'm recording, it adds another color. Each of them is a color, and shows you exactly what was going on, in each of these institutions. And also is, and you see that it actually started probably in October 2020. So you can change that to start in October. And then you see a little bit more information about what's going on here. So that's one way of looking at this information. You can go and filter by anything, by teacher, by class, by project, by student. Of course, project, you already, by, how many projects exist, and students, and so on. So the possibilities are really endless in that sense. Now let me move on to this dashboard here that you see, that you saw, you're actually landing on. And the reason you're landing on this dashboard is because this is kind of a daily usage report for administrators. And when the teacher logs in, teacher actually doesn't get active schools and doesn't get active teacher. The teacher gets just active students and active projects. And so in this case, because this is an admin login, you see everything that's going on. What is the usage? What is the level of usage in a specific today? The latest was May 4th. So yeah, today, exactly what's going on. And so in addition to that, you are able to see on the bottom what are the top projects, which are the projects that are worked on most, and they will be listed here. And you can even go to those projects by clicking on them, and then you can move on to top schools. What are the top schools that are using it most, and then who are the top teachers that are using it? And here you have the whole list of them, and then top students that are working on the project. So all this information is available for you. So quite a plethora of information. Of course, I did not show you yet, and maybe I should show you. And let me sign out and sign in again to the other account, and show you how there is an additional information for you that that you can that can be provided. And that information, let me go again to that finished project, the products in motion. And you can see that it actually, each object provides you a show history of what was done by students. So for example, if you go to this component and you go to the three dots, you can go to show history here. And it will provide you exactly how many, that Benjamin contributed this text on this date, and he added that image on this date, and so on. So all this information is added for you here. And you can just go through each object and review what was added and when. This actually, we have big plans for this, to add it to the menu item. There's going to be another entry that will say history, and then you'll be able to filter it by student name and get a daily report of what was done exactly by each student. So there's a lot of information that you can get here. All right, so that's basically it. This is all there is to know about analytics, and I think that's quite a lot. Let me now discuss a little bit about project management, and let me tell you something here about project management. Project management can make or break your project, really. I mean, it's so important. And the reason I am discussing this here is because teachers are not project managers. They are usually, usually we find project managers in workplaces. Teachers don't need to manage projects usually. So that's why we thought that this is a new skill that actually we have to focus on, because it's very important to manage the project right. And so let's start with what you need to prepare before you assign a project. And so you actually need to go to the project dashboard. And as a teacher, you need to make sure that, first of all, that if you have, for example, a video for this, that you can add a video here that shows the students how to use this project. You should also maybe change the description if you need to change it. And then team members, of course, right now you have no team members because you did not assign it yet, but before you assign it, so this is something you're not touching right now. But standards, you need to make sure that you added all the standards here before you assign it to the class, because once you assign it, you cannot change these things. And the reason is that students start working. And when they start working, if you are going to override, with your copy, whatever they have written, then what they have written will disappear. And so that's why you have to make sure that you do that before you assign it. And so then supporting materials here, make sure to list all the supporting materials and before you assign it. And then tasks. And tasks is actually very important and really an important part of the management of the entire project. But before you assign a project, there's something that's called top-level tasks. Now, only after a project is assigned, you are able to see who it was assigned to. Like, look here at this one. This is a project that was filled out, but it wasn't finished yet, so they did not check mark it. But on the bottom, you see that this was assigned to Daniel. And if I'm creating a new task, for example, if I'm closing this and creating a new task here, you see a list of the students in the team, and you can actually check mark this to somebody in the team. So you can fill out the information and so on, and then just check mark it, who is going to perform this. But before you assign, because this project is a finished project, of course, you see the student's name there. But before you actually assign a project, you don't see any students there because it wasn't assigned yet, but you still can fill out a task. And these tasks I call top-level tasks. Top-level tasks will be more general. So they would say, like, work on this, on the physics of simple machines, and do the following things. And you will describe in general what you want them to do in this tab. But then students who are in charge of this will go there, we read what your requirements are in this task, and then they will come up with a detailed task. And detail will be for each of them, what each of them will do. So for example, if Susie and Joe and Jamie are working on this, then it will say there will be a task for Susie that says that Susie needs to do force, and she needs to come up with all the characteristics. And then Joe will come up with his own assignment, his own task, and so on. So you understand that those are the subtasks of that top-level task that you just provided them with. And then, of course, you still have to make sure that you add the rubrics. So here under evaluate, you have to add the rubrics. You have to do it before you assign it, not after. And so that's all you have to prepare before you. And of course, the other thing that you have to prepare when you have a project template, in this case, this is a finished project, but when you have a project template, you need to go over each of these tabs and make sure that that you change everything you needed to change, and then that it's ready for you to assign it to the class. Now, let's go back to the task, because as I said before, I already discussed the whole thing with top-level tasks and then subtasks. But the task actually really is the essence of the entire project management here, because in the beginning you created those top-level tasks, and then the students came in and they went through each of this and divided the work and decided that each of them will do one part of it and which one they will do, and then they created tasks for those. Students also, so it has to be very clear for students what is it that they are doing. Many times you have projects in which you have very few objects that you have to reflect on. So in this, maybe this is not a good project for that, but let's just go to another project and show you that. So let's say that I am working on design the city of your dreams. And I am now in this tab. It says city vs rural. And I have here only two text boxes. One of them says describing city living and the other one describing rural living. And let's say that we are 4 people in the team. Now what's happening? Something like this. Students in a situation like this many times have to actually do the research. And it's all up to them whether all of them will do the research or they will divide it. They will say, you know what, Joe and Jane, you are going to focus on city living and rural living. And then Joe and Jane will do the research and they will go on and they will fill in this information. Or the entire team is going to read about it, have a discussion, and then based on their conclusions, they will nominate somebody to type up the information. But this is after they have discussed the whole issue together and have come up with like their ideas about what they think that city living is or rural living is, and then somebody will reflect that in typing up the information. In this case, I would say probably one student will be assigned to do the research and to also write it up, because it's not so crucial for them to really discuss this. There are other situations where discussion is important. And so, for example, in another place where discussion is important, for example, if they have to decide, on a transportation plan. And transportation plans are actually important because all of them have to be updated about it. I have to read about it, because here they have to make decisions. So they have to first write down the existing conditions, but then they have to kind of make decisions about what they think that the infrastructure needs are in the city of their dreams, or and what criteria they need to the criteria to prioritize the needs, and they need to come up with those criteria. So this is more like a situation where they have to discuss, they have to read, discuss, and then decide who's going to write up these things. So in this case, actually, the work, if this is a team of 4, work can be divided exactly equally. But if there's only like 2 text boxes, many times in situations like this, the team nominates somebody to write up the information, whether after they discuss it or it. Now, again, another thing that you need to remember, that even though one person writes up some information, like I said before, in the city vs rural, it doesn't mean that only that person knows it. This information needs to be presented and read by the other team members as well. They need to be as updated about it as all team members. Sorry, as the team member that wrote it. Okay, so now let me show you, because like I said, there are different types of project and different types of scenarios. So I already showed you the scenario where they, where not everybody needs to know everything, that that roles are assigned, and somebody does it and finishes it and then tells about it to the entire team, or the entire team reads about it, like I said, here in the city vs rural, or a situation where they actually have to be updated about the subject, read about it first, and then come up with all kinds of, discuss it first, and then come up with conclusions that then they will write down. Let me show you a situation where actually there are very clear roles, and each of them brings something to the table that in the end they need to, again, make decisions about. And this is this project about the Titanic. So this project starts with a kind of like a general background about the disasters. And again, this can be divided among each team member. But then as we move to the next step, we see that this is only dealing with the construction of the Titanic. So what's happening in here is this project is about a shipping company that wants to build another Titanic ship, but this time to build it in a way that learned from all the lessons that have been learned from the sinking of the Titanic. And so what we are creating here are experts. So there is an expert who is a construction expert. So one student in the team can be that expert, and they need to read about it, fill this whole information, and know everything about construction. And then another person needs to be that iceberg expert that kind of needs to give recommendations about how to detect icebergs so that something like this never happens again. And then another person will be, an expert for the accommodations and for the passengers, how the passengers were living in those accommodations, whether there needs to be something that, we can improve, or they can improve in designing those accommodations and so on. So like I said before here, and every single one of them is an expert for something. And so they will then put together all their expertise in the end when they come here to the one that says casualty analysis. And here they will show all the factors: the construction factor, the iceberg factor, the crew factor, communication, evacuation. So all these things are factors that contributed in this way or the other to the sinking of the Titanic. And they will then, they are actually here reusing information, dropping it from the content library into each of these right columns and filling this in, and then based on this information that they already filled in, they will then be able to come in here and recommend and make a recommendation to this blue star line, who is considering to build the Titanic again, and give a recommendation about construction, about weather, about ship design, about the best weather to go out, and the ship design, the managing the crew, the technology, so on. So all these aspects they actually studied thoroughly. So you see that these are all different scenarios, and how you manage these things, is very, very important, so that, nobody gets lost in translation. This is very, very important. So what we learned from this is that, when you assign tasks, you actually sometimes have to assign roles. Oh, you will be the construction expert. You will be the iceberg expert. And again, don't even think for a minute that by somebody being the expert for something that the other team members will not know about it, because every single one of them will actually inform the other team members, not to mention that they have to actually put it together here, where it says, where here they have to actually create this table that kind of lists all the problems that they discovered in their own fields. And yeah, so this, as I said before, this is very, very important. I would also consider assigning a team leader. And the reason you would have a team leader is because a team leader can actually look at the tasks and whether people are completing tasks. If one person doesn't do their job, that job falls on the other team members, and that is absolutely not fair. So by having a team leader looking behind the backs of the other team members, it is very helpful if they nudge somebody and say, oh, you know what, you actually need to do this, and so on. Another way to manage tasks is, and today we, and let me go back again to that project that is complete, and I can show you quite a few things there. Another way to manage project or manage tasks, I should say, is if you go to the tasks and you see that, right, we have a lot of tabs here. Assigning tasks by tab is a good idea. So right now that is not available, but it's coming soon. But until it will be available, what you guys can do is when you create a new task, you can type in the title, the physics tab, and then write the name of the title. This way you can distinguish, you can say, oh, this belongs to the physics tab, and this actually is part of, this is a task for the physics tab. So that's one way. The other way that you should handle tasks is by prioritizing tasks. You can put numbers there. You can put, oh, this task is number 10, then comes task number 9, then and so on, or you can start with 1 if you want, and then number 2, and so on. So basically, the students know that one task has to precede another task. And only then you can, because many times one task, if you have to kind of finish one task before you go to the other, because that other task depends on the previous task. So that's also another thing that you can do. So again, as I said before, give it a name of the tab, or even prioritize it, give a number. I mean, the team can sit down and decide which one comes first, which one comes next, and so on. And as I said before, roles, team leaders, and as far as team leaders are concerned, even if you nominate a team leader, it's probably a good idea to have the entire team exercise the leadership skills of becoming a team lead. So throughout the project, you can say, you know what, you guys need to rotate the leader role. So, for a week, the first person in the team is going to be the team leader, the second week, the other person, and rotating is a good idea. All of them have the chance to kind of exercise leadership skills, and that's very beneficial. So thank you very much. This was a very, very long presentation. I hope that you benefited from it. and I would be happy to answer any of your questions. There are a few ways, and let me go in and show you how you can actually contact me. And I'm going to log in now as a teacher and show you how, when you go into a project, and let me just go to a project here, any project, how you have on the bottom here, you see you have a little blue icon that looks like a disk. When you click on it, you can go and you can send us a message. And here you can type, for example, and then once you do that, we are getting that message and we can immediately respond to you. Another thing that happens is that you can also look in our support system by typing in a keyword. So let's say that you want to know how to import the Google Classroom. You just type the word class here, and it gives you all the articles that have class in them, and you can go to them. And they many times they also have videos of how to do stuff. So please feel free to do that. So that's basically it. This is how you work in Project Pals. This is actually the last training in the three sessions of training that I provided to you, and I hope that this was helpful. Thank you very much.